right is Larry Greenbaum, Vice Chair. To my far left is Richard Johnson. To his right is Chuck Hart, one of our alternates. To my immediate left is Tammy Bakey, our recording secretary and your favorite town clerk, tax collector. And I'm Ellie Alessio, I'm your chairman. We've got a few items of board business that we're going to conduct before the hearing, which will start at 7:05. And since there are many of you here that have never been to a zoning board, I will let you know that the applicants will have an opportunity to present their information for us this evening on how we should proceed forward with their request. I will then seek comments from the audience in support of their request and comments also in opposition. And I'll do those in favor first and then opposition. If I start hearing the same thing over and over, I'm going to cut you off. I don't want to disenfranchise you by any stretch of the imagination, but I know, I'm assuming that many of you here are in support of Camp Lincoln, and I want you to be brief in your comments because there's quite a few of you, and once I start seeing that you're getting repetitious, I may ask you to state your name and just say, I'm in support of Camp Lincoln. So, or oppose, as the case may be. I don't want to leave that option out for you as well. If you think I'm not being reasonable, you can raise a point of order. I'm just trying to be fair and trying to keep the process moving as smoothly as possible. I don't know that I forgot anything, but we'll give it the best shot we have. I'll tell that in a minute. Okay, we need to accept the minutes from the October meeting, October.
I'll move that we accept the minutes as written.
Okay, second. Were there any corrections or additions? Okay, and then the minutes will be adopted as, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Minutes are approved and are on file. Let's see what else. Our fabulous secretary is being inundated with work in the town clerk tax collector office. We are looking for a secretary for the zoning board. If any of you would like to step to the plate, we meet on the second Thursday of the month. Not necessarily every month, but most months, depending on how much activity there is in town for building exceptions. The meetings last anywhere from 20 minutes to 2.5 hours. The minutes must be done within 5 business days. That's the one stipulation. And there is a payment. You do get paid to do that. I've reached out to one person already, but I haven't heard back. But I'm always open to other suggestions if someone else wants to. Any other board business? We get about 2 minutes, minute and a half. Yes, sir.
Sorry, procedural matter. We are being recorded tonight.
Okay, thank you. And I believe the selectmen also post on the website when they repeat the viewing, so that if you wanted to see your smiling faces again, you can go a different time on the cable channel and take a look. In the meantime, why don't Mr. Fredette and our director come forward, have a seat, get settled. By that time, we should be able to start the hearing. Okay, I'll read the legal notice as posted. This is a public hearing whereby the applicant seeks an appeal of administrative decision made by the Kingston Planning Board. The applicant alleges that an error has been made in the decision, determination, or requirement by the Planning Board on or about February 19, 2019, whereby the Planning Board denied use of the site as an overnight use, as it was not previously approved by the Planning Board and is not allowed in the single-family residential zone in relation to Article 1, Section C2 of the Town of Kingston zoning ordinance. Welcome, gentlemen.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm just going to announce I'm recusing myself since this is a decision on something I voted on, so I'm the planning board, so I'm going to recuse myself.
I'm sorry you're doing that, because then we shouldn't have a planning board and a zoning board then. We're going to have to talk about that another time.
Okay.
Okay?
But,
I'm not going to.
but since this is deciding on a case that I voted on, if
That's fine, and Mr. Hart will then sit in lieu of an alternate, we'll be voting tonight. So we do have a five-person board, we're all set to go. Could you tell me your name again, I'm sorry,
Name's Alex Turek. I'm the CEO of the Southern District YMCA.
thank you, and Mr. George Fredette?
I'm George Fredette, representing the YMCA Camp Lincoln.
Very good, are you the initial spokesman, Mr. Fredette?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, why don't you present your case to us? In addition to the packet you had already sent, and that has been distributed to the full board electronically.
Thank you for doing that. And thank you for hearing us tonight. My presentation tonight is really going to mimic the narrative that was included as part of the application. But I'm going to tell you in short where I'm going with it, so I'm going to tell you the end of the story, and then I'll fill in the blanks with you. In short, Camp Lincoln has operated since 1926. Part of the program has always been overnight use. In 1978, the town overlaid a zoning district which did not include camping or overnight camping. So in effect, YMCA Camp Lincoln became a non-conforming use. But state law has a provision in it to protect such a thing. If you have a use, and then you have a zoning district that overlays it, that would otherwise preclude you, the state says, hey, that's okay, and you become a legal non-conforming use. That's what we contend that YMCA Camp Lincoln has. They have vested rights as a legal non-conforming use. In the February 19th Planning Board decision, I don't believe that they recognize that, and their denial should not have happened. And that's why we're here in front of you. And specifically in another RSA, it says that in the exercise of site plan review, the planning board makes any decision or determination that's based on the terms of the zoning ordinance or upon any interpretation of the zoning ordinance, then such a decision may be appealed to the Board of Adjustment. That's where we are tonight. After that February decision, we were contacted in March by YMCA Camp Lincoln. And I'll tell you frankly, they contacted us to help them with a variance application to come forward to you to seek permission as a variance for overnight use. Our first task was to research the matter. I didn't have any dog in the hunt, I was just preparing an application. We familiarized ourselves with the recently concluded events, the letter to Camp Lincoln, the application, and the planning board hearing. And then we started to solicit help from town staff to help research the issue. I was advised that over the years, YMCA had represented to the board on several occasions that overnight use had been abandoned. In fact, I was directed to the 2001 court case, and that was identified as a holy grail that's where it all was. As near as I can tell, in the background of this matter, that's where the confusion began. In 2000, Camp Lincoln had submitted an application to the planning board for conversion of a dining hall to an education center. That education center had overnight accommodations. They denied it and referred the application to the ZBA. The ZBA denied it. We found in the minutes, and there's where the story begins. We found in the minutes of the local planning board hearing in the year 2000 that, quote, it was stated that Camp Lincoln was a non-conforming grandfathered use. People sleep overnight at the camp. I think that was attributed to one of the YMCA representatives. However, later in the minutes it says, it was stated by members of the board that the town is under the impression that Camp Lincoln is a seasonal day camp. I think that is a meeting that the lines were drawn on this issue. I think there was some confusion since, probably in the terminology, day camp, resident camp, overnight use, but nonetheless, that's where I think this whole issue started. as I said, that ZBA application was denied, and Camp Lincoln appealed it to the court. Superior Court upheld the ZBA decision, and the denial was affirmed. But in that decision, in 2001, Judge Coffey wrote that the court finds the following facts: that the petitioner has operated both daytime and overnight activities on the property for at least 3 seasons out of the year over the course of many years. That court decision and some of the other documents that I'm going to reference were part of the application that I have in this document here. 20 years later, almost 20 years later after that court decision, Camp Lincoln received a letter from the planning board. And it states, "It has recently come to the planning board's attention that Camp Lincoln has been hosting overnight events. Overnight use of the facility is not an approved use for that site." Now, in those 20 years, other stuff clearly happened, but it's somewhat ironic that the decision was made and then the letter is received 20 years later. YMCA, upon receipt of the letter, sought advice from the municipal staff, and they followed that advice by responding to the planning board with an application. That application read in part, it was an application for overnight use. The intent of this application is to seek denial for the overnight use of the site, which will then allow us to seek a variance. On February 19th, the planning board did just that. They accommodated and they denied the application. Some of the meeting minutes I will read, quote, "It is the feeling of the board and the town that there has not been overnight use approved. The camp was a day use activity." And on another quote, "It's just been a day use since 1987. The minutes then note the denial because it's not allowed use in the single family residence zone, and the board does not have the authority to grant any relief from that is needed. It was considered a procedural remedy to allow the applicant to apply for administrative relief from the ZBA." That's where I came in. I was asked to put a variance application together, but as I looked at it, I took this in a different direction. In the notice of hearing, notice of decision from that February meeting, it was again stated, quote, "Several past review hearings have reiterated that the camp is a day activity only." So I'm in the research mode, and again, I'm looking. Our findings were copied here, and they're all submitted to you tonight. Our discovery yielded no evidence of abandonment of overnight activity. We found no planning board meeting or any other documentation that demonstrates that overnight use was ever abandoned. We did find public minutes that state that the board is under the impression, or it is a feeling of the board, that overnight use was curtailed. However, I want to read some other quotes from you from those minutes. Back in 2000, following the planning board hearing that led to the court case, YMCA was at the ZBA and they represented that, quote, 39,530 people had used the camp from October 1st, 1999 to September 30th, 2000, with 10% of that figure having stayed overnight. That's almost 4,000 people. In August 2001, again, Superior Court found that Camp Lincoln had operated both daytime and nighttime, daytime and overnight activities on the property. Later in 2018, there was a site plan review for a tree house. The recorded minutes state, quote, "Mr. Greenwood confirmed that anything being proposed during this evening's meeting was for daytime use." The YMCA representative responded that there are other cabins that are used for overnights. That site plan was a tree house and there were a couple of cabins that were moving. In a letter dated June 10th, 2019, that was presented to this board, Chief Seaman wrote, "It is my opinion based on inspection reports on file in our office that date back as far as 1988, that overnight use of cabins at Camp Lincoln was done on a regular basis." Camp Lincoln facilities include 18 residential camps that are furnished with beds and mattresses. Those cabins were refurbished, on or about the year 2005. Just the fact that they have them there, they were using them, and this documentation says that they were using them. And then in this package, Camp Lincoln did their own research at our request, and there are several documents in there between 1980 and 2002. I was impressed that they were able to recover them. That documented files that showed evidence that there was overnight use. And just the fact that they're there, frankly, I'd like to flip through them and say, hey, look, all these years, and they have newspaper articles and budgets that have line items in there indicating that. But if you have the time, take a chance to read some of that stuff. It's very telling as what was happening on Camp Lincoln and having the overnight uses there. I fear, I said this dates back to the year 2000, and I think a misunderstanding developed. And I think that misunderstanding continues. Because in fact, when I was back here last, in August, the minutes of that meeting say, when YMCA came in with 2 cabins, they clearly said they had no overnight use. Out of context, that sounds like there's no overnight use. The minutes did go on where Alex defended that, saying, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, we do. It was just for those 2 cabins. And recently, you probably saw the local newspaper article that said the camp is essentially a non-conforming use by zoning standards. You know, we agree with that. However, it's a legal non-conforming use that's protected by New Hampshire RSA 674-19. Tonight, we're asking that the Board of Adjustment, acting on the authority granted to them, that they affirm the vested rights of Camp Lincoln to maintain overnight use of the facility that they've had ongoing through the better part of the century, and overturn a decision that was made by the planning board. With that, I conclude, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, normally what we do is we allow the audience to speak, those that would like to speak in support of the proposal from Camp Lincoln to speak first. And I'm going to need you on a microphone. You're going to need to tell me your name and your address. Yes, name and address. For the purpose of that, I'm going to ask Jackie to, if you could move your microphone over, because whoever would like to speak, I want you to come forward and maybe, can we get a chair over there as well, so that if someone wanted to sit and speak, they could. Just grab any one of them. Thank you, Jackie. Oh, I didn't even see that. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Adam. I'm sorry. It must have been too tall. Okay. Thank you, Adam. Okay, you can use either microphone, either stand right there or come and sit down if you'd like to sit. So who would like to begin? Don't all jump up at once. Mr. Smith, Larry Smith.
Good evening. I wrote down what I wanted to say so I wouldn't talk all night.
I wouldn't let you anyways, Larry.
I know. I know. But thank you. I have a couple points that I would like to share. First, I joined the Camp Lincoln Board in 1982. I served as chairman for many years. I even served as an acting camp director one summer when we were in between camp directors. Boy, did I learn a lot that summer. I retired from the board in 2000. So 18 years was a long time. Back in the 1980s, Camp Lincoln was owned by the New Hampshire YMCA, along with Camp Belknap, Camp Coniston, Camp Huckins, and Camp Foss. Money was tight. People were resisting the cost of sending their youngsters to camp. Pressure was mounting. Camp Lincoln was being subsidized by the wealthier camps. In other words, there were many districts in the state of New Hampshire. Portsmouth had his, Nashua had his, and so forth. But the New Hampshire Y was a conglomerate that handled administration for the smaller units like Camp Lincoln. The Northeast District in Boston, to whom all of these outfits actually reported, would not let Camp Lincoln stand on its own because they feared that financially it couldn't handle it. And the New Hampshire Y was forced to talk about selling it and getting rid of it because the wealthier camps, in particular Camp Belknap on the side of Lake Winnipesaukee, was well endowed, and it was sick and tired of subsidizing the poorer camps. So the New Hampshire Y, of which I ended up being on the board, was forced to talk about selling it. And Kingston was going to lose Camp Lincoln. But no doubt about it. I sat on the board, I listened to it, and it bothered me terribly. Our solution was to go to a day camp where we might be able to break even financially. The camp has grown, as everybody knows, from 50 to 80 youngsters in those days to over 600 daily. And it's 95 years since it was deeded by Warren Tucker in 1924. And it sure would have been sad to see 75 acres, give or take, and some 1,000 feet of shoreline go to the developers. As you can see, even though I retired from the board, my interest is strong in Camp Lincoln, and I hope all of yours is strong too. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Who would like to speak next? Anyone else? Can't see, okay, yes, thank you, come on forward. Please state your name and your...
My name's Anita Fowler. I don't have a prepared statement.
That's okay.
But I'm here to speak on behalf of Camp Lincoln. I am a Girl Scout leader here in Kingston. This is my 12th year as a leader here in town. And years ago, my lovely daughter said, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could all go camping someplace nearby? And so we started something called Camporee here in Kingston, where all of the Girl Scouts come from towns that are neighboring and are part of our Girl Scout community, and we have rented the property for the weekend, where we can enjoy a lot of amenities that a lot of campuses or properties don't offer, even Girl Scout properties don't offer, without us going all the way to Vermont to enjoy and learn about our environment and how to be outdoorsy and how to respect our environment. And the staff and the directors there have been gracious hosts, and I just think it would be a terrible loss. It has been a terrible loss this year for us not to have this opportunity in our town, especially locally, you know, for us to have to go 3 hours to have something this great. So I'm fully in support of Camp Lincoln and their opportunities to have overnight amenities.
Thank you very much. And then I'll take that lady that's standing in the back, okay? Go ahead, Rick. No, you go ahead.
Thank you. My name's Rick Russman. I actually served on the board with Larry for a number of years, and both my sons went there. They were both lifeguards there. There's no question in my mind that we did go from an overnight to a day camp, and that was fine. At the same time, Camp Lincoln still to this day struggles, and I think that if the board can probably grant them to do that, and I know that sometimes they have weddings and things of that nature, and some of the people would like to stay overnight, and it's a matter of economics, really, trying to keep the camp viable and make it work. And I think that it's been a great asset for Kingston and a great asset for a lot of the people that are here. My only concern, and I am president of Ridgewood Association, although I'm not here tonight speaking as president of Ridgewood Association, is we're right across the cove essentially from them, is if it's granted, which we're happy to have it granted, and I'm certainly in support of that, is that there be some kind of a quiet time from maybe 10 at night till 6 in the morning, so that if there are parties or weddings or what have you, that you're not going to have, loud music going till, 11, 12 o'clock at night. So that, and I don't know if that's something you folks can impose or.
There already is an ordinance, a noise ordinance for 10 o'clock.
Okay, well, then that may be covered in that, so that may take care of it. So it certainly, it make them economically viable, and to me, that's probably what the argument really is here about, is to try to make, Camp Lincoln's got to make a living to make it work. So it'd be nice if you can help out in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russman. Hi.
Hi, good evening. My name is Daniela. I live at 3 North Main Street.
And what's your last name, Daniela?
Daniela Curry Gutierrez. I live at 3 North Main Street in Newton. I am a current educator, a former Sanborn graduate, and a former YMCA employee. First job when I was in 8th grade, got to work there. So I'm here for several parts of why I think that this camp is valuable for our town. I think about all the things that puts communities and places on the map, and if you're looking to build community, strengthen leadership, and create an opportunity for youth and adults to be able to spread that, why not allow this to be why we're on the map as Kingston? Why not let this be the opportunity that people know us for and see us for? As a current educator, my job is to offer camp opportunities for my students, my high school students, every year, and we've been coming to Camp Lincoln for the last decade, offering programming and overnight with them. So even though my school isn't in this town anymore, we still continue to come here. I chose Camp Lincoln because I knew firsthand what was offered and what Kingston could offer and how I could invest back into this community that meant so much to me growing up. I also have, like the Girl Scouts said, that they looked at other places. I spent an entire summer this past summer looking at camps within an hour of our location and could not find anything that was equal or comparable to what you are offering here in Kingston. So I think about how not only for people within our town that get to use that, but what a wonderful way for everyone outside of our town to actually get to know our town and appreciate it. So I think eliminating this opportunity is eliminating ways for more people to invest and support community here.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak in support of Camp Lincoln? Okay, yes, sir, come on down. And then that lady in the blue sweater will be next. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Reed Van Coolen, 63 Ball Road, Kingston.
Are you in the butter? Almost.
I live on site.
Okay.
I have the privilege of being the current camp director at YMCA Camp Lincoln.
You live on site on the only house that's approved?
Yes, I live on site on the house. Firstly, thank you to all that came out tonight and support. Overnights have been a part of our camp since our founding 93 years ago. Hosting overnight guests enriches and strengthens our mission of youth development. It's an opportunity for our youth to gain independence, a sense of belonging, and camaraderie amongst their peers. An environment where kids can be outside, away from their screens and technology. The overnight camp experience is truly a lifelong memory. Campers remember roasting s'mores over the campfire, sleeping in cabins with their friends, and waking up early for a morning swim in the lake. In addition, Camp Lincoln recognizes the life skills this experience provides our youth. In today's world, there are shocking numbers of young adults who struggle in their first experience outside of the family home. So whether this is moving for work, joining a service branch, or attending college, the number of folks who are not capable of successfully navigating this is at an all-time high. Experiences like an overnight camp stay actually build resiliency and independence in a way most other programs do not. I certainly have vivid memories of my overnight camping experience as a kid, just as I'm sure everyone else in this room who had the opportunity to experience remembers. We certainly hope to continue providing lifelong memories and traditions dating back to 1926.
Thank you very much.
Jen Lampron, I'm in Smith Quarter Road in Newton, New Hampshire, so, but
Your
my
neighbors,
kids,
your
what?
neighbor- Your neighbors.
Yes, exactly. We're neighbors, and of course, we've used Camp Lincoln over the last, I think we've been there for over 10 years now. Both, so Anita is also a Girl Scout leader for my daughter. I have a younger daughter who's also camped at Camp Lincoln through the Girl Scouts. The camporees really offer an experience for the children, for Girl Scouts, that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere nearby. And that's an important thing to offer to our children, especially considering these Girl Scouts, a lot of them are coming from Kingston. Why wouldn't you want to give them that opportunity? In addition, my children, or the oldest one, not the youngest one because of the change this past year, has been able to do overnights at Camp Lincoln during the summer in the camp program. I think it gives a nice opportunity to children who wouldn't otherwise have that experience of overnight camping. You know, Camp Lincoln serves the broader area and offers scholarships to kids who wouldn't be able to afford camp otherwise, so you're missing a whole niche of children if you're not giving this opportunity. Not all kids can afford overnight camp, so the one overnight during a 2-week session makes a big difference for a lot of children. I personally think that my children have benefited from it. I think it's a great property, and I would like to see it be continued for overnights.
Thank you. Mrs. Gluck, Mrs. Mahoney, the other Tammy.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Tammy Mahoney, and I live here in Kingston. And I didn't have a prepared speech either, but I think Camp Lincoln is a wonderful resource, and I think they've been great for the community. My kids attended so many different programs, after-school programs with Camp Lincoln. They attended Camp Lincoln in the summertime. Camp Lincoln has been a really good neighbor, I think, with the schools as well. They offer, or they did when my kids were in the schools, a program in 7th grade, and when the kids were in 9th grade, community team building. When our Music Boosters organization needed a place to do a fundraiser for Halloween, they stepped up, they let us make a haunted house kind of out of the property. I just think it's a wonderful resource, and I support it fully.
Thank you, Mrs. Mahoney. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Come on down.
Hi, I'm Kim Abizade. I'm at 21 Hunt Road in Kingston, and my daughter has been a Camp Lincoln camper for 10 years now, and she has done the overnights there, where I don't typically let her sleep out at other people's homes and things like that, but I fully trust Camp Lincoln to supervise my daughter during the camp overnights, and I fully support Camp Lincoln.
Thank you very much. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Mariah Keeler. I am a 7th year staff member of Camp Lincoln. I am a senior at Kobe Sawyer College. Camp Lincoln has not only affected my life, but as many as well as people in here. Camp Lincoln is the whole reason why I changed my major. I am a sports management major with a focus in leadership and recreation. Sleepovers, especially right now, we are looking in my program youth class of how to best develop the youth. especially through different programs, and sleepovers are a big key at kids developing in their ages. And again, like we've said in past people's conversations, they talked about how at other camps, it's a full week overnight camp, and some kids aren't developed at that stage to be able to do the full week. So by giving Camp Lincoln the opportunity to be having at least one overnight a week for these kids, just to experience that and help them develop that level of just social interactions, because we live in such a technology-based world that kids need to have that in their life.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any other? Okay. We're going to wind it down. A few more. Okay.
Hi, I'm Kate Cook. I'm at 17 Hunking Street in Portsmouth. I am the chair of the board of the Southern District YMCA. I'm here tonight because I think it's really important for you to understand the way that the board of the Southern District Y makes decisions when it comes to places like Camp Lincoln. We constantly have to think about financially, are we viable? How are we doing? What can we do to continue to support campers at our camp? And that's really our priority, is supporting our campers and making sure our camp is viable and successful and continues for years to come. This year has been difficult for us because we had a considerable loss this year at camp because we didn't have overnights this year at camp. We lose approximately $50,000 in income by not having overnight camping in a year. That's from programming for groups like the Girl Scouts, to programming for our campers that stay on site, to people who have weddings on site, to family camp and overnight family camp on site. So when we lose that kind of money, we have to think about how much money then we have left to reinvest in scholarships for young people who can't afford camp. Because we are a nonprofit organization, that money that comes in goes back out to invest in our community, into our campers, into our staff. And so when we lose $50,000 in a year, that really does impact our bottom line, and it impacts the community of campers because we can't afford to offer as many scholarships as we would normally. So thank you very much tonight, and I hope that helps you understand where we're coming from as an organization and why this is so important to us.
Thank you. Two more yeses. Anyone else would like to speak at this time? Okay. It's all right. You both can come up. I said two more, unless you get something new.
I am here with some members of our Girl Scout troop.
Okay. Identify yourself.
My name is Rachel Gloss. I'm at 9 Haven Lane in Exeter. Our troop has come for camporees since the girls were in 1st grade. They're in 5th grade now. My own family has come for family camp at Camp Lincoln. And this coming year, the girls will be old enough to participate in the overnights that Camp Lincoln offers, because they also go to, 2 of them go to camp here in the summer. Last year, our Girl Scout troop was unable to do camporee because there were no more overnights, so we did not do a full council camping experience. There just is nothing offered that's as good anywhere in the area. So, and this coming year, we're looking ahead to where we could go, and the closest is an hour and a half away, so probably the 1st, 2nd, 3rd graders will not be participating. It's just too far to bring little kids that far away from home. We went to family camp this year, and we didn't go overnight because there were no overnights offered, and it was a much smaller group, much smaller activity. So we would love overnights to come back. Our troop would love it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Hi, my name is Melissa Holleran. My address is 20 Beverly Street in Melrose, Massachusetts. I came up here to support Camp Lincoln. I am an alumni of Camp Lincoln. I was not a camper there. I went to resident camp, but I did work there as a staff member from 2001 to 2007, and am currently still affiliated with Camp Lincoln on a committee to help engage our alumni and also to be a part of the Kingston community as well as the broader community. Most of my points have already been said, but I just want to reiterate the impact that Camp Lincoln has, and I also want to make sure that we do highlight the impact that it has on our children. It's an opportunity for them to disengage from electronics for a day and for a night, and having been a resident camper and moving into a day camp atmosphere, having that one night is each session is truly impactful. It allows guards to come down. Something happens when night falls, and you get to chat with other people and get to know them in a different way. You become a little bit more vulnerable, and I think that it's really important for the children who don't have opportunities to go to resident camp on a full-time basis to have at least one night in order to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I did say two more, but I'm assuming, well,
I'm already here.
Don't be fresh. Now you hold on one second. Is there anyone here that wants to speak in opposition to Camp Lincoln's proposal tonight?
I'm not speaking against Camp Lincoln, I'm speaking for them, but we've already got
Yeah, hold on, that's not what I'm looking for right this moment. Okay, so there is no one here to speak in opposition to the request, so you can get a chance to talk.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much.
And please identify yourself.
My name is Dave Lovely Talon. I live at 110 June Street in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Oh, you've come from away.
I did. I came up to support Camp Lincoln because I also serve on the committee here at camp, and I was an alumni. I grew up in Danville, and I went to camp from age 5 until I couldn't go anymore, and then I worked there for many years as a staff member, and a lot of the points tonight have been made in talking about our current youth, and I would like to say that camp had a major impression on me. I think it shaped the values I have as an adult, and it shaped the profession I have. I still work in camping, and I think that it'd be a shame for the town to lose that for their future youth. So thank you very much for listening to us.
Okay. Unless someone has a burning desire that they can't hold in, I'm going to open up to the board now. Okay. My colleagues, questions? We also have the chief here. We have the questions of the chief.
Statement.
Statement?
Statement. I don't think anyone on this board is looking to do harm to Camp Lincoln. We're looking for a way to accommodate the camp as well as the town, the zoning bylaws, and we may be able to come up with something that'll satisfy everyone.
I have to reaffirm my colleague's comments. The zoning board has never been against Camp Lincoln. Camp Lincoln has been a part of the fabric of this community for many years. There has been some instances where the overnight camping didn't exist. We know that. Deceased, it's not quite the right word. There was gaps, and I could tell from the paperwork, not only from the extensive paperwork provided by Camp Lincoln, but I gathered the files from the fire department, and there were just years, a few gaps, but it wasn't the overnight camping for campers that became an issue so much as the expansion of a non-conforming use into areas that were still non-conforming, whether it be, and I'll throw weddings out, for example. Very hard to comprehend that same situation as a camper. But we've done some homework, and thanks to the extensive information the Camp Lincoln gave us, we I think may be able to work something out. But I have to reiterate that when it's unfortunate that you lost revenue this summer, but at the February meeting, I don't remember, June meeting, I believe we suggested that Camp Lincoln go see the selectmen to ask for a special permit to continue the camping overnights until we can resolve this issue. I don't know what happened, I don't mean to throw anyone under the bus here, but we were well aware that there was some revenue gonna be lost, but we thought by going to the selectmen, the camp would have been able to at least offer the overnight camping, the one night a week on Thursday nights or whatever night it was for the kids. But that didn't happen, so, I mean, that's regrettable, I'm sure, but I'm hoping that as we proceed through the evening, we can move forward from there. Mr. Coffin, you said you wanted to talk about some procedural piece of it from the planning board's perspective?
Yes, I just wanted to address the wording on this appeal, and that is that, first off, I was on the planning board when we had this decision. It was not a long decision because we granted the request of Camp Lincoln without prejudice. They had made a request for denial of an application for overnight use, and at the time, the reasons granted that the denial was granted, as you state in your letter, it was not previously approved by the planning board, which is correct, and it was not allowed in this single-family residential district, which is also correct. So the question is whether the planning board made an error, and again, I'm coming from the perspective that, and I know members of the planning board members felt the same way, that we were happy to grant the request to expedite it to get a variance. We sincerely thought that was going to happen. At least I did, so I can only speak for myself. And I grew up in Exeter and had a lot of friends who went to Camp Lincoln, and I enjoyed it. I've used it in the past for St. Albans Rowing Club.
Peter, you want
Okay. So I'm just saying that this is why we granted it without prejudice, the request of Camp Lincoln. Unfortunately, the way they worded the appeal is that the planning board made an error. And in granting that appeal, we granted those two conditions, which are both correct. And there was no evidence presented by Camp Lincoln at that meeting on pre-existing use.
I think you're taking it too literally, Peter. The application lists out the demand. They're really appealing the decision. And the way the regulation sets up in the application, it has to come out the way. I think.
Okay. Yeah, but I was pointing out.
Don't take it to heart. I guess what I'm trying
the
to
same
say.
way you said about the ZBA. I'm making the point that the planning board did not do
Duly
this
noted.
as some kind of conflict to the Camp Lincoln.
I felt bad that we were not able to convene
move
a
it forward.
joint session, so we could have worked out the details, but it's not
Technically,
allowable because Camp Lincoln would have had to have a site plan and a request on file before the planning board in order for us to meet. And that was the ruling that we received, so therefore we could not go forward.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And more comments, questions from the board? Jackie, did you want to ask anything?
I just wanted, no, I actually did a lot.
You might want to pull your microphone closer to you.
I can talk to you about it.
Okay, well, they're recording it as well, so.
I wanted to thank you for the electronic portion of the research that you did. I wasn't here back in February, so I think June was my first meeting, and I know that when we left the meeting and was, the conclusion was that unfortunately, there weren't gonna be any overnights, and I immediately, thought of the kids, how unfortunate that was. And I know that certainly wasn't my intention, and it was very disheartening to me. When you provided all the information and the history behind all of this going back to a long time ago, it helped me to understand the chain of events, because when being here in June and just getting bits and pieces of it, it was really hard to put the whole piece of the puzzle together. So I have always been in support of, and I agree with what everybody was saying, as far as the kids and to reinstate what you were saying about the intention not to close Camp Lincoln or to take any opportunities away from the kids. And I read all the information about the codes, the fire and the safety. That was my only takeaway from any of the information that I read was about the safety, which I have no doubt that would be, that is in place. Or if
Well,
not,
we're gonna make
it
sure
would
it
be, it would be in place, or make sure that it is. Other than that, that was my only concern.
Mr. Greenbaum.
Well, with the chairman's help, we have developed something that I think, with some adjustments, will satisfy Camp Lincoln, address the zoning bylaw issue, and I'm gonna pass these out, and hopefully,
I'd like to give Mr. Let's see.
Yeah.
Can we give Mr. Fredette copies? We don't have copies here. This is not a final form. This is a proposal to my colleagues here. And we need, you can share one? Okay.
there's more.
You need some more? Good check, please. Anyone else? Alex, would you like a copy yourself? This is not a final form. This is, you want to talk about it, we're going to read it. Okay.
I'm gonna read it.
Do you want me to read it? I mean,
Well, go ahead.
okay. All right. This is what we're going to propose. Camp Lincoln YMCA is located in a single-family residential zone in Kingston, New Hampshire, and its use as a camping facility for children has been grandfathered in its current location. While there has been testimony that there have been occasional lapses over the last 30 years in continual uninterrupted offerings of overnight camping opportunities at Camp Lincoln, it is not the intent of the Kingston ZBA to shut down the facility. However, health and safety issues will take priority. The following stipulations prevail from this point forward, if this is adopted. First, the Camp Lincoln will operate as a camping outdoor event facility from May 1st through December 1st. Prior to opening in May, the camp's executive director and/or board of directors will arrange for the Kingston Fire Department to come in to inspect the facilities to ensure that the cabins and other buildings are up to code as appropriate. A detailed drawing of the camp facilities that designate the type of buildings, their purported use, and their location on the site will be made available annually to the planning board, the building inspector, and the fire department. While prevailing law allows some expansion of the prevailing non-conforming use, it must reflect the same nature and purpose. It must not be different in character, nature, or kind, and it must not have a substantially different effect on the neighborhood. To this end, camp activities, including occasional overnight camping, is allowed. Concerts, weddings, or recreational activities such as an ATV center are not considered traditional camp activities and are not consistent with established non-conforming use. Variance relief would be necessary for that activity to be allowed on the property. The intent is to more clearly define non-conforming use on site. This does not preclude a one-day event, such as a wedding or a business after hours or a corporate team building event from occurring, only that such an event is restricted to more than a two-day, one overnight event. No more. If you could see what we're trying to split the baby here and allow you the use that has been done. There's got to be honest with you, it was only until I was able to obtain the file at the fire department that we finally had a map of where all the buildings were. Even in your proposal, we didn't have that. It was attached to fire department letter from, I think, Norm Hurley in May 1994 that had the buildings outlined. So we could see where different things were. I don't think any one of us understood there were some buildings that were strictly day use, there were some buildings for overnight use. Where were the bathrooms? How many bathrooms were they? I myself was under the impression there was two, one in the nurse's cottage and one in the main hall. And then in some of the paperwork, I saw that a permanent house year-round was built in 1994. It had a building permit, and that house was allowed to be year-round, the only one to be allowed on that property. So there were even amongst supporters, there was misconceptions of what was there or what wasn't there. So Larry and I got together, we kind of came up with this proposal, and I'll be honest, I lifted straight out of Peter Laughlin's review, our attorney, and that the whole section on the permissible use in nature purpose is straight from Peter Laughlin. So I want to give my esteemed colleague attorney kudos for some of the language that's directly from his remarks to us. Comments, suggestions?
Can we hear from the petitioner first?
And I want you to be honest with us, okay?
Could we have a moment?
Absolutely. Don't change in the end, okay? John, we're gonna need you in a few, so you're welcome to come up if you'd like. Have a seat.
Was I saying that this does not preclude a one-day event such as a wedding or business after?
Like I said, we're open. Yeah, right. You're behind me, you're not in front of me, chief.
So, weddings, today, one over. Just ask her, she's open. Yeah, well, I think you may want to suggest that, you know, give a chance to discuss it without another hearing.
You mean have it come to the next meeting?
How do you do it? Yeah.
Mr. Fredette, you know, if you all would like time to review this, we could continue the meeting to December, because there's a lot in there, and we haven't even addressed alcohol on this property, and that's why I wanted the chief to come forward. I know they've had details there when there's been alcohol. So there are other nuances, and the other piece of this is, excuse me, could I please ask you to quiet in the audience? The other piece of it is, we need to work through how to do exceptions, and we're trying to leave the door, we are leaving the door open for exceptions, and we need a vehicle for which to make that happen. So I think if you request a continuance and we have some dialogue, so you can, because as I say, it's a working document. My colleagues, most of them have not seen this, so they're gonna want some input in it as well, but we want to make it work, and this is the best way I think we can make it work.
I think without a question, we need time. The board's gonna need to see this document for the why and to make an informed decision. I think ultimately it sounds as though weddings is the major issue.
Not necessarily.
What other issue is there?
The first thing that comes to mind when you're using a facility for a wedding is alcohol.
Okay.
And that's why we question that use. And if there's a way to get around it, that's why we asked the chief to be here to give us some input so that we can get a better idea of how we can memorialize this so it works for everyone.
I mean, the first couple of facts, just the fact that that overnight camping encompasses quite a few different activities. There was no gap. There was never a gap in these, it was never ceased. It might not have had contract signed overnight rental agreements here or there, but it's worked into the fabric of the camp itself. But if we're talking about allowing alcohol on property, when there's ever been a party rental, there has been a police detail. Those details have gone on for how many years? Several years. So it's not new news to us, it's new news to this board.
Well,
but for us to comply with what we wanted to do for legal purposes, certainly have the police detail on site.
Yeah, where we were coming from is that that activities reflect the same nature and purpose. When your grandfather in as a camp, an overnight camp, that is your grandfather. And there have been some lapses. I can't give you an exact date. It's not a feeling. It's not a maybe impression. It's things have happened over time, but it's been a long time. But for the most part, there's been overnight camping. And there's one thing to have an overnight camping on Thursday night, a camper with the kids. I mean, it's an awesome opportunity for the kids. And if they're there for 6 weeks and you get 6 nights, you can do it awesome. But when you're getting into activities where, let's say the Extra Chamber comes in. I've been there with the Extra Chamber. I've been there for an after hours. I've been there for their raffle night. It's a one-time event, one evening from 5 to 9. And there's alcohol, and I'm sure there were police on duty. That's one instance. It's not an overnight. It's not a wedding when you might have alcohol for several days. You don't have, it's not like Saco, Maine either, where you have individual cabins that are self-sufficient. All the bathrooms are inside, the bedrooms are inside, you have your own self-sufficiency. It's different setup. I've been to that. And I'm just speaking for me. I can't jump in for any of my colleagues. I'm just giving you my experiences. Are we going to get to year-round overnights all the time there? I don't think so. I don't think that's what the neighbors really want. We want a kids' camp. And there are adjuncts, there are offshoots of activities that are of the same nature. Outdoor education for adults is one of them. You know, I'm sure you probably have done some of those experiential ed programs that are probably awesome over there on your facility. That's a different type. It's related. You see where I'm going with the difference? I don't want to pick out I hate to pick out weddings because it's a fun thing to do in the camp. It's very popular these days. Kids like the brides and grooms like to go to outdoor events, but it gets to be, I think, more of a hazard. And we can't, as a board, overlook the safety issues. I mean, I don't know that anybody really knows, are all the electricity things up to standard? Do we have fire extinguishers? Are there, alarms built into the building? I have no way of knowing, and usually that's not something that the zoning board gets involved in. It's usually within the purview of the planning board. However, if we go this route to get things settled, then there's going to be, we have to rely on you to follow up to make sure that you're in compliance. I don't want to make you file new papers every year. That's not the intent. If there's a change, you need to file the appropriate papers. But things have been grown at the camp without going through the planning board, without going through a building inspector, other than the house, we know in the house. I'm not saying it's illegal. I'm just saying that, it's expanded without the permitting process. And so we just want to kind of make this a fresh starting point. And how do we go forward to let you be successful on that site? Comments?
I can tell you, originally I met with Rob years ago when they were looking to bring in some that type of event, and we looked at liquor liability. We had several conversations, which I go to the Camp Lincoln quite frequently. We talk about a number of different safety issues. So we sat and we spoke about liquor liability, and one of the things that we do is we put a police officer there to make sure no one's driving away intoxicated, number one. And on some occasions, and not all occasions, they will sleep overnight in the cabins. But most of the time, they leave the establishment. But there's always a police officer there from start to end to make sure there's no liquor liability issues. I know that was a concern of the camp years ago. Like I said, we had a number of discussions over that. There's been zero issues. And
is great.
I've been going over there for 42 years, and can tell you that most of our incidents are weather-related. So we've worked hand in hand with the camp, or I have, for 42 years.
May I ask one question? Do you have liability insurance for alcohol?
We have liability insurance.
You have liability insurance, but you don't have,
Not a specific, and forgive me, I'm not sure if that's if there's an additional waiver
Usually there
for
is.
liquor.
yeah.
I'm not sure if that's in the contract, it would be on the,
I mean, it would probably come into effect so infrequently, you might be able to buy, or obtain.
A rider.
Yeah, a 1 day or a 2 day coverage.
You
or
can do it
minimal.
online for $150. We've had a wedding at our house, it was $150.
Did you have a permit for that?
No.
I thought I'd ask.
Mrs. Basley, did you want to add a clarification point? Point of clarification?
I just wanted to mention that I'm pretty sure that camp requires that anyone that has a wedding there has to provide a certificate of liability. If there is gonna be liquor on premises, their certificate of insurance has to include liquor liability as well as general liability if they are going to be having an event there. Because that's what I do for a living, and that's what I've had people come to my office to purchase the insurance to provide to camp.
Thank you, Kingston Insurance.
That's the answer.
But I do have one question. You're saying that you're limiting it to one night, overnight?
The opening salvo is 1 night.
So the Girl Scouts, I'm curious to know, are the Girl Scouts typically 1 or 2 nights? So that's shutting them down for,
That's a different category. Overnight facilities for camping is okay.
okay.
I can tell you that.
It's a non-camping issues.
Like
The
the
Girl
wedding.
Scouts, they can have overnights all week long. Not a problem. That's not what we're saying here. It has nothing to do with the scout. It's beyond the scouts, beyond the camping, the kids camping. It's beyond the kids camping that we have some issues.
Thank you.
Just a point of information.
Sure.
On a rare occasion, would they stay overnight? Most of the time, their guests leave, because the officer is always there, so I know that most occasions they leave the key.
Well, maybe there's a way we could do it so that you can have a 2 night permit or a 3 night permit, I don't, for non-camping events. You know what I'm saying? Without going, I don't want you to come here every month and tell me what you're doing, I don't wanna know.
so I think it sounds to me, and George has some information, but it sounds to me as though we are separating 2 things, as you've outlined. You've got overnight activities that are camp-related, similar to Girl Scouts and other activities that are.
Even, right, that are related, like an outdoor education
Outdoor
program
education.
would be kind of.
And then there are things that might, in my mind, I'm trying to find the line that we divide these 2 things on. Is it alcohol, or is it, I think that's a little gray.
It's a piece of it. Alcohol and overnight.
Sure, yeah, and so if that's,
Non-camping activities.
if we say something, a party a wedding, let's say, wants to rent but no alcohol, can that be an option? It's up to them. If they want alcohol, it's, we come up with whatever it is.
Have parameters.
You gotta here's what you gotta do if you want alcohol, but you can do a 2-night overnight wedding stay without alcohol. Is that a reasonable?
I want my colleagues to join in, because I haven't heard too much from my other guys here. Is this the right direction to go? I mean, will this work?
I think if it's a venue that requires a policeman there, like whether it's 1 night or 2 nights, 3 nights, even if it was, I can't see a wedding there for 3 nights, but if it's 2 nights and you've got the police detail there, I don't think we need to limit it per se, at least wise to 1 night, because and you got a policeman there. I mean, how much more, other than the neighborhood? I agree with the fact is that, but we do have the noise bylaw at 10 o'clock. So if, in fact, it's too noisy or somebody calls and complains, they're gonna call the officer that's there.
Would that help you in policing the people that are using it, if this agreement included timeframes, or would that become a hindrance? I just, you don't have to answer it now, Wayne, but if we're gonna have a discussion over a period of time, or, you know, over a week or two.
Yeah, I think coming up with something that makes sense for someone to understand, here's what we can offer you as a, you know, a party coming in. As long as it's clearly defined and we agree upon.
I know, I think we do want it clearly defined, because we don't want you having to come here or to the building inspector or the board of selectmen every time you have an event. That's not the intent here. It's not a harassment issue at all.
I'd like to, if possible, if we leave tonight with maybe that side of the issue to be ironed out, but the other side allowed, if the board approves it, the overnights for camping purposes, is that a reasonable outcome, so that I can take the other portion of this back to the board of directors and have the discussion about what those parameters might be, and we can get the discussion between the two organizations?
I don't see anything wrong with that.
No.
Mr. Greenbaum?
Can we do that in a month?
Do you want me to work with them, Ellie, where there's alcohol, police involved, to try to come up with some?
That would be helpful, I think. Okay, let's see. And you're okay with the May 1st or December 1st?
That, I think, needs some discussion. I just, that timeframe might, I'm not.
Might be too stringent?
Yeah.
We don't see it as a year-round, because,
Yeah.
be honest with you, and if you go year-round, I think that's a whole different ballgame.
Sure.
And needs a whole nother site plan and a whole nother hearing.
You know, I have my colleagues behind me here to confirm that anything overnight between the months of December and May, it's unlikely. I can turn quickly and just
If we use this phrase 3 season, will that work as opposed to dates?
We typically start overnight around November. Sometimes we start up around April, some school groups coming in. Sometimes I'd say, you know, it's more of an April 1st.
So will 3 season suffice? Because it takes out that January, February, December, January, February, March, basically. Okay, instead of a date, let's change that to 3 season. Camp Lincoln will operate as a camping outdoor event facility for 3 seasons of the year. How does that sound?
That sounds like part of the discussion that we're looking forward to, if we continue this to the next month. Right. But before we close the meeting, I would just like to submit the letter from Attorney Sullivan that reiterates.
I did submit that to the board.
Okay.
My colleagues.
Okay.
Yep.
And there's.
What piece of it are you referring to?
What's that?
What piece are you referring to?
It was a letter that I emailed to you.
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
I have it.
And I'm just saying that whole letter reinforces the presentation that we make and underscores what we're doing here tonight, which is our request here is that you uphold our appeal and affirm that the camp has vested rights and overnight use is a legal non-conforming use. And we appreciate the effort that you're making here. Camp Lincoln, I think, has demonstrated, even through this appeal process, that they want to work with the town. Safety is an interest to them. They're not looking to have an undue burden on any of the town facilities or people. But we're going to create something where everybody can enjoy the facilities, the serenity of the environment.
And we have to avoid a bed and breakfast, week-long activities there. You know, that's what our job is. And so, that's why I said, we're trying to split the baby here and make it work. We want the camping part, but the kids is the easy part.
And
to be honest with you.
We're saying the same thing to each other. And lastly, I'd like to thank everybody that was here to support Camp Lincoln. And it's clearly demonstrating a public good, and if we ever come back with a variance and need to demonstrate that, we're going to ask them to come back again.
Okay.
So you're asking for a continuance?
I think we should have a continuance to the December, and I need a date, boys and girls. It'll be at 7:05. Second Thursday in December?
Be the 12th.
The 12th? Okay, December 12th at 7:05.
Electra, just, in the meantime, we'll communicate regarding this so that there's no
Yes.
surprises when we get here.
Yep.
Do we have any obligation to notify that hearing with you?
No, we'll put a legal notice in the local paper that
This is-
designates a continuation of tonight's hearing. There will be no butter notices or anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone that's here that would like to come can still come. They can read about the minutes and at the end of next week, so they know what happened, or someone else that's not here, but we will not be noticing in the butters, but we will have a legal notice in the paper and posting at the town hall.
I thank you for helping us out.
Like a motion to table on one side.
To continue it.
Continue it in the other. Do we need some kind of resolution on camping? Camping is allowed for camping activities?
We verbally have stayed, I'd like the whole thing to be adopted at once, but we're not, camping, overnight camping for youngsters is well within your grandfather use. Can I say it any more clearly than that?
Thank you very much.
Okay. But we gotta work out the details of non-campers.
If you come up with a proposal for this, can you get it to us so we have a chance to review it as well?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we'll share some emails in between, and then the only thing we cannot do as a board, cannot communicate as a group. That would be a violation of the right to know. But we can, Mr. Fredette and I can chit chat and get some things, suggestions, and then I can disseminate to you. You all can send it back to me and work it through, and hopefully when we come in December that we have a proposal that's comfortable for everybody. Okay, very good. So I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing
So moved.
in a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. See you December 12th. Have a happy Thanksgiving. I think we did damn good, and I forgot.
I didn't know you'd put in all that work.
What's that?
I didn't know you'd done all that work. I just think.
You know, a lot of work.
Yeah.
I've been gnawing on this for a long
Oh, yeah.
time, just because I wanted it to work. You know, you let this
Yeah.
fester in your back of your brain. Like, we'll get wait a few minutes and let the crowd come out, and then we can, this one ought to be real good now. I know.
Good night, adjourned. Oh, is this-
Okay, gentlemen, we're gonna ask you, Mr. Fredette, I'm gonna ask you to go, because we got another hearing. So we're gonna ask you to clear the room. Thank you. I'll look forward to your email.
Electra, thank you.
Welcome.
That was very interesting. Yeah. Very educational for my daughter. I said, there's a big deal, let the kids see both. I know they had alcohol.
Yeah, I'll be in,
I just think it's interesting that there's still some, that there's no laugh. And
I know,
He stood up right up and
yeah,
said,
we know there has been.
that they changed it to an Yankee.
it
He
wasn't-
said it right there.
No,
In the record.
You can see in the paperwork there's a lapse.
Yeah.
You can, even in their paperwork, you can
Yeah.
tell, because they go 6, 7 years without anything.
Yeah.
So, okay, are we ready for, our last hearing, Mr. Khalil?
This is simple.
You see?
It is.
And I left Tricia at home to do the mail.
Yeah, I remember her.
I am Robert Khalil, it's my daughter Mackenzie Khalil.
Hello, Mackenzie. Okay,
I was really hoping you'd bring her.
this is a public hearing whereby the applicant seeks an appeal, no, excuse me, this is a public hearing whereby the applicant requests a variance to the terms of Article 104, Section 4J of the Town of Kingston zoning ordinance, and asks that terms be waived to permit a 3-family dwelling. Approval for this was originally granted on July 13, 2017, and has since expired. Mr. Khalil.
First of all, thank you for granting it. I've been working on the property and it's starting to become very pretty, beautiful looking. As you drive into Kingston, it's the first house you see in town from 111, coming this way, coming east. Anyway, I did everything I was supposed to do. I gave my engineer a check for half, 1,800, and he just dragged his feet doing the site plan. The time ran out, and I didn't even realize there was nobody told me that there was a 2-year limit on an approval of a variance. I had no idea. I've been working on this, the check I gave my engineer to have the site plan done was 1 year ago. He just finished it last week, and I called him like 700 times. I'm surprised he didn't fire me. But, so anyway, I'm just here to just keep moving forward. The site plan is done now, and we're ready to present it. We'll be at the next planning board meeting.
Mr. Khalil, what's your address?
Of the property?
No, your mailing address.
Oh, my mailing address is,
Which one?
yeah, I know. I have a couple houses. 24 Chase Island Road.
So that's the one you provide, and your stuff keeps coming back to me.
Okay,
And you keep saying that you're
They
not
just
getting
started to-
notified, you might want to give us the right address.
okay. I have been living there for 17 years, and the mail has constantly been forwarded to my house, my childhood house that's around the corner. And just recently, I've been finding out that they're not forwarding the mail any longer. Well, some mail they'll forward and some they won't. I guess
Well, that was your complaint 2 years ago, was you didn't get notified either, so maybe you ought to check into it.
Oh, did you send me, did I get a notice saying that something was gonna, that expires?
No, you got a notice 2 years ago of a meeting that you said you never got notice of.
Oh, well, that,
You wanted to share that one, you hold up to that one.
I live on an island, so sometimes it's confusing with the mail.
You get a P.O. box.
We read that as it may. I've got your property folder here.
Okay.
Okay? And right now, you are in compliance, there are only 2 families
Right.
in that building.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't come in here looking for an extension of a variance that has expired, that doesn't work that way. It does not work that way.
I didn't know.
You had not, well, I know you should know these things, you've been in this business of building,
I've not
remodeling
really.
homes and real estate for a while. The one thing we know is that the exterior has improved, it's not done.
The front.
But
The front has improved.
it's looking beautiful, right?
It looks very nice.
Cars, it isn't looking good.
Okay.
There are, yeah. I was there today. 5 unregistered cars on the property. 5 cars, no license plates on them, and I didn't go walk on the property because it's not my property. But from the street, you can see 5 cars with no plates on them.
And you still have a lot of debris in the back, I gather, right?
No.
Well,
this is June 2018.
I took out 9 40-yard dumpsters of debris outside. 9 40-yard, that's huge. Place is looking beautiful. I plan on continuing to fix it, that's all I'm doing. She has a car there, I have a car, I have 2 cars there. There's,
You still got the trailer in the back?
I have to get rid of that, definitely.
I don't know, 2 years.
No, that was a different trailer, that was it.
Oh, so you got rid of one and brought another one back?
No, there was a monstrosity of a camper trailer that was a nuisance. And then there was a little one that's tucked in the woods. The little one is still there. I didn't even know I had to move it out of there. We have a few things in storage in there. I didn't even know it wasn't allowed there. Nobody's mentioned anything about that.
Well, that brings up an interesting point, because when this was granted more than 2 years ago, you were instructed that you needed to come up with a site plan before any work could be done. You needed to come up with a site plan and get it approved through the planning board. And now you say you've been working on the property. How have you gotten building permits without having gotten the planning board approval?
Well, the two units that are in compliance, I just changed a couple windows, and I just talk to Bob all the time when I do it. I pull a permit.
You have gotten building
Yes,
permits?
oh, yes.
Well, because if you don't live on the site, you have to pull permits. You can,
Of course I pull a permit.
Okay, that's interesting, because that's not what the building inspectors said. However, was there any demolition of the property?
No.
No, so there was no disturbance of lead and paint or asbestos materials? So the cease and desist letter you got, that was not accurate?
What was that, sir?
Cease and desist letter that you got from a building inspector?
April 17th, 2018. Cease and desist from all work until proper permits have been obtained. Electrical plumbing work must be performed by licensed New Hampshire electricians and plumbers. You cannot do this work yourself because it is not your domicile.
Okay.
And Mr. Stewart has a 26 Chase Island Road. Is it 24 or 26?
I don't know, I see Mr. Stewart all the time. I've been pulling permits for doors and windows, and I'm constantly in the office. And the last time I was in the office was probably 3 weeks ago, and he said to me, I'm getting a lot of, not complaints, I'm getting a lot of compliments about the property.
Right,
That's
we
what-
understand that, you know, that was one of the reasons why the board granted this, was because
Fixing
of
it
the
up.
improvements, but that meant that you had to go through the process, and do this legally. Now, it says the letter you got on, that you signed, or Chief Briggs delivered to you on November 2nd of 2017, says, this demolition and new work without proper permits must cease immediately. That's the one we're talking about. That's another cease and desist letter. Demolition work requires asbestos and lead paint remediation as per state and federal regulations. Abatement personnel must be licensed and certified. Fines could be substantial.
I'm a master plumber my whole life.
Okay,
I mean, I know the procedure of pulling permits, getting inspections, and.
Right, which is
nothing
why
new to me.
I'm surprised that you would not have gone through the procedures here, and quite frankly, the building inspector is there to protect you by making sure the work is done properly. It's protects especially the occupants of your building, who are Kingston residents, and that's his job. And so when he's seen this many violations, you had people living in those apartments, and you're doing demolition work on a house old enough that would have had lead paint and asbestos in it. So this is I think a big concern, and why the 2-year, you know, why in 2 years you haven't even come before the planning board to start the process?
I wrote the check out 1 year ago to the
I don't care when you
engineer.
wrote a check, you haven't applied to the planning board.
You gotta go site plan, you still
I have
gotta.
to get a site plan first before I go to the planning
That's your
board.
starting point.
I should have brought a copy of the check the last year,
It won't matter, but you still didn't go before the planning board. I mean, you've got nothing to
oh
work
no,
with.
they don't want me in front of the planner, but I applied for the planning board, they said, no, I can't, they want a site plan, so I hired Lavelle engineer 1 year ago to do a site plan. I gave him,
Maybe you need another engineer.
he finished it, it's done now. He just finished it a couple weeks ago, and when he went to submit it, that's when I found out you have to go back to the zoning board, and I applied instantly for an approval, a reapproval of what you guys gave me permission for.
So
That's the only reason I knew I had a 2-year limit,
So-
and I
okay.
bugged Lavelle for a year straight to get it done. I paid him.
Right, okay, we really don't care. We have other people who have had problems communicating with their, but that's between you and your contractor. The question here is, there's a sequence of events, and it was spelled out in the letter that Mrs. Alessio gave to you, that said that you had to go to the planning board for approval prior to any work. So you go to the planning board, you get a site plan approval, then you take that to the building inspector to get building permits.
Okay.
And then the building inspector inspects the work that has been done. And as I said, that's to protect people who are living in that house and future owners and everything else. So he is doing his job, but you need to
I've been
follow.
pulling permits there. I just pulled 2 permits there for windows and a front door.
But for the additional third department, you haven't pulled anything.
No, I can't, I'm not even working on it. I can't work on it until we get an approval.
And this is.
But it's okay to work on the outside of the property, nothing's changing there. I'm working on 2 existing, assistant
You
units.
can work on those two, because that's,
Yeah, that's what I've been working on, a little at a time. Just spending a little money here, there, waiting for Lavelle to do the work. I called them, I'm not even exaggerating, 60 times I called them to get this done.
be that as it may, until you come up with drawings for that
So it's all done now, I'm just waiting for an approval, and then,
The drawings are all done?
the what?
But, the site plan?
Site plan's all done, $5,000.
I don't, how
I'm
much
just
is
saying that-
spending is not our worry.
It's all done, the site plan is done. The only, I gave him, I hired him, and when he went to apply, to submit the site plan, to get to put it in front of the plan board, that's when I found out he can't submit it, because the zoning board, approval ran out. And I said, oh, I don't know, let me apply for the zoning board, I'll go back and get a reapproval. What's that, sir?
How many rentals are still in that building?
2.
It's 2 now?
Yeah.
So you bought us tooth and nail for 4, and you got it down to
No, 3 they gave me approval for.
We gave it,
There's 2 legal.
Well, when I first bought it, it originally was 4 units. So,
That's what you bought us to keep 4. I mean,
well,
you wanted to go with 3, and you took it. Now you're down to 2? And that's
now
what
it's
you want.
conforming, now there's nothing, he can have a duplex, he can have a 2-family house in there, as is, we don't have to do anything.
But if he wants the 3, he's gotta go through the.
I wanted the 4, but we agreed to give me 3 if.
And so basically,
My
because that's
attorney,
expired,
my
we're
attorney
starting
got
again.
aggravated, she was here 5 different times, and I actually said, and she stood up and closed the book and said, come on, Bobby, let's go, let's get out of here, we'll just take him to Superior Court. My attorney's a judge for 20 years, and she said, well, we're in court for a 4-family, don't settle for a 3-family. I said, let me just settle for a 3-family, I just wanna make the place beautiful and move on, I don't really need 4 units, 3 is fine, I said. So, you guys granted me a 3 to save all the aggravation of Superior Court, you granted me a 3, and you ran out, and I didn't know, nobody ever said 2 years, and I was on Lavelle constantly. If I should have the secretary sitting, it's like, I don't even have to tell her who it is. All right, I'm having them work on it, they're working on it, they're working on it, they're working on it.
So here's the thing, is because it expired, we're starting from
Because it expired, I'm just here to renew it.
The last time, the applicant was the owner, John Crosby. This time, you're the owner, and so you purchased the property, you know, because you've been here a number of times, you know the regulations.
I purchased it because it was a 3-family, yeah.
You purchased it after the property
Yeah,
got approved.
after I said, okay, let's go.
Right, so, we still need, because that expired, we have to start again. The first time is you as an applicant.
We can start again, we already heard all the facts in the whole case already.
No, but we're starting again because it's a new application.
Okay. Well, I filled it out as a new application, as me as the owner, instead of John Crosby. I was representing John Crosby. And then when we got the approval, I said, John, I'll definitely buy it. It's approved for a 3-family.
Okay, we got a letter today from the building inspector, Robert Stewart. I'm gonna read that into the record. Because he's advising us to deny this. Let me read it to you. The application for a use variance to legitimize 2 existing vacant apartments, thus creating a 4-family unit at 19 Page Road should, in my opinion, be denied. In 1980, the town ordinances restricted properties in the rural residential zone to 1- and 2-family residents only. In 89, the property was listed as a single-family dwelling with 3 bedrooms. In March of 1990, the owner, John Crosby, provided a letter stating that the property at that time was a single-family 3-bedroom dwelling. In August of 1990, Mr. Crosby obtained a building permit to convert the single-family to a duplex as an allowed use in a rural residential zone. Property cards from 1991 and 92 continued to list the property as a single-family dwelling. In 1997, there were 2 letters from attorney Brian Woodworth advising the building inspector at that time to obtain a court order and otherwise stay away from Mr. Crosby. The 2004 property card shows the property as having 4 apartments. Units 3 and 4, although they have existed for several years, now vacant, were constructed illegally without review from any of the necessary boards of inspectors. A multifamily apartment building is not an allowed use in a rural residential zone, and to make them legal would require, at a minimum, a variance from the ZBA, a planning board site plan approval, a septic review, proper building, plumbing, electrical, and mechanical permits with inspections for all, including by the fire department. I don't think property owners should be allowed to profit from illegal work, hide it from the proper authority by denying access. And he's referring to Mr. Crosby, not to
Okay.
you in this instance. And then be allowed to make it legal simply because it has existed for a long time. The present owner, Mr. Khalil, was well aware of all these issues before he purchased the property on August 31st, 2017, and still went ahead with the sale. That's Mr. Stewart's.
What, in a nutshell, what is he saying? He doesn't think it should be a four-family?
Well, he thinks it should, he doesn't, yeah, he thinks it should stay as a two. And that in order for it to go anything more than the two, that you would need a variance from the ZBA, planning board site plan approval, septic review, proper building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical permits.
That's, yeah, I agree to all that.
And I'd be happy to give you a copy of this.
Oh, I agree that he wanted, the board told me they wanted all the proper, inspections done, so for a three-family. They wanted, every apartment was gonna get the fire department, the plumbing, the electrical, building. That's the plan. That's what I agreed to on the first meeting when you granted it before I bought it.
You're asking now for another 2 years? I don't know about that.
I'm coming in front of the board right away. I'm not asking nothing, I wanna finish my.
It's expired.
I just wanna finish my project.
You haven't really started the project.
Gone to the planning board yet, that was the first step.
What's that, sir?
The first step was to take the site plan to the planning board for site plan review.
The first step was to get it approved here, because I went to the.
Yeah, that's the first
I
step.
went to the planning board, and they said, go to the zoning board.
Right, that's the first step in the,
Exactly.
after
I went to the engineer, I wrote him a check a year ago, and he has it all done. It took him 11 months to do my work, and I stopped in there, and I would call him and stop in there, and I wanted to move forward with this project, because the rent is $1,500 a month, and I have a unit I can't rent. I kept telling him, I go, listen, you cost me $350 a week by dragging your feet with my site plan. I didn't even tell him anything about it's expiring. The people at the building department didn't know anything about site plans expire after 2 years, and then I went upstairs to the planning board, and they didn't know anything about, and then Mr. Greenwood, I asked him, he was the only one that knew. He said it's a state law, it has nothing to do with the town of Kingston.
Correct, and the secretary.
I'm not Mr. Greenwood. Okay, that's what Mr. Greenwood told me.
That is not Mr. Green.
And Alan, he's a good guy anyway, so. So that's what Alan told me in her office.
And in fairness to the secretarial staff in the selectman's office,
Mhm.
and that's what they are, secretarial staff of the selectmen. So they're not necessarily gonna know all the nuances of the building.
Well, I didn't know, I would've rushed even.
I'm surprised that your attorney didn't tell you when you got it. You got 2 years, get to work on it.
Well, how long does it normally take for an engineer to do a site plan?
I don't know.
It's not our business, quite frankly. You know, that's.
You gotta pick the right engineer, obviously.
I have another engineer I hired for another job in Plastow, and he's also dragging his feet, and I give him the retainers up front. Everybody is extremely busy with the economy being the way it is. But he's finally done. The bill's $5,000, and I was gonna present it next week with the follow-up on the deal, on my approval.
What's the answer to resolve the situation?
I don't know.
Well, we have to,
Wait, go ahead.
we do have a request before us, and we should go through the procedures, including identifying each of the requirements for variance, hardship, all that stuff, and we can discuss them as we go through them, and determine whether, we're not gonna worry about the problems he's had with his contractors or whatever. We're just making an objective evaluation of the application before us. And so I would move that we go ahead with the procedures that the request that's been put in front of us, and we locate the appropriate place and go through the requirements, and we can discuss them. And I would say that we should be discussing these, we can discuss these individually, not both on them until.
So I got one.
You got two here, okay, give one, you got one, we should get enough here. You got one for Richard, Chuck, you won't be voting on this, I gather, right?
Yeah,
You got
I
five.
came back in.
Yeah, so, yeah, you got one for Jackie, you got one for you, and Peter.
Oh, yeah. Another one?
Yeah, I'll find something over here. Variance, just plain variance. These are all special
Oh, all right, that's
exceptions.
cool.
Yeah, it's not a
Got it.
special exception, it's
It's a variance.
variance. I don't know, I don't have one yet.
Doesn't matter, it's crossed out area in the top.
It's variance.
Doesn't matter.
So,
That's correct.
I need to, what are we doing?
We're gonna go through one by one of these. You're
But
gonna,
we're crossing out what?
we're
Oh,
gonna
no,
go,
no,
I'm
no,
gonna
you-
read
you-
these
you-
one by
you
one,
got
and
it.
we're gonna talk about whether it meets
Okay.
the 5 criteria to get a variance.
Okay.
Okay?
And this is again for 3 units, right?
Yes.
Correct.
As it was in the first, this is
That's
the
correct.
renewal of.
That's exactly correct.
So what is the actual, I'm assuming that the petition for a variance for, and that's the physical address? What is that?
No, the variance is for, Article 104, Section 4.1. And the address is located at 19 Page Road. And it's tax map R22, lot 32. Now, in order for him to get a variance to allow a 3-apartment unit in a 2-apartment dwelling, all 5 of these criteria have to pass. But the variance would be to allow 3 units in a 2-unit building.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So,
Well, this, just, 104.4J is single-family and/or 2 dwellings, family homes, accessory dwelling units.
he's in the,
So, that's,
it's a zone that he's in that allows him to have a 2-family unit.
right, yeah, so, they want, so it's a variance from that says single-family or 2 dwelling. So that's what we're,
That's correct.
that's what we're discussing.
So,
104.
104, Section 4, letter J.
J, so I said I meant J.
Yeah.
I don't have reading glasses
No,
on, or J.
I'm reading his eye too.
Okay, thank you. And that's to change, a 2-family unit to a 3-family.
Right.
Okay, after reviewing the petition, after hearing all the evidence, although you didn't really present any evidence tonight except to seek an extension.
I just thought it was
It's not a no-brainer.
Well, my closing statement, when you gave me the 3-family, I can say that again if you guys wanna hear that. The closing statement was, my attorney's been here 4 or 5 different times, Trisha DeMayo, and she got so aggravated at the end, because we were trying for a 4-family, you guys were just, everybody was going around with formal codes and everything, and I don't understand any of that. And she got really upset, and she stood up and said, come on, Bobby, let's go, we'll take him to court. And I said, Trisha, wait a second here, just sit down and relax, and let me speak, because I haven't spoken.
You're not threatening us, right?
No, I haven't spoke to the whole thing, I haven't spoke through the whole thing before. And I said, folks, this is Trisha, she's the local guard, whatever, and I said, she feels that if we go to Superior Court, that the outcome is gonna be a 4-family due to all these tenants living in a 4-family for 25 years and all that. So I said, I'll settle for a 3-family if we can just end this, because I don't wanna have to continue and waste all this money in Superior Court.
Shame on you for not getting it done. or
I know, so you
started.
guys stood up and we agreed to a 3-family, we ended all of it. So, if we don't agree to it, we're just back to where we started. I'm just gonna go for a 4-family at Superior Court. I don't wanna do that, I just wanna finish my project.
By you saying that, you're threatening them.
I'm not threatening, I'm just telling you what happened.
That's your
Can I tell you
interpretation.
something? The
Well, I'm
likelihood-
not threatening anybody, but
likelihood of
I'm
your
not gonna
getting
settle for a 2-family.
4-family
I'm not gonna settle for a
after
2-family.
getting a 3 and not doing anything is highly unlikely.
I moved forward with a cleanup on the outside, made it beautiful, and I paid my engineer to do a site plan, and he's finally done. So I can't control an engineer that's extremely busy because of the
Anything
economy.
else you want to add before we?
But that's where we were left off at. That, by no means am I threatening anybody, but that's what's gonna happen.
That's what's coming across.
Okay.
After reviewing the petition and after hearing the evidence and by taking into consideration the personal knowledge of the property in question, Kingston Board of Adjustment has determined the following. Number 1, will there be a diminution in value of surrounding properties as a result of granting this variance?
I would have to chime in on this one because I think that there would not be a diminution of value because once it's properly approved, the site plan is approved, and you go through that, there's got to be an improvement because right now, quite frankly, you did the site tour of that, and there's nothing to go there. So I think that would improve it. Plus, as you know, the neighbors behind you aren't exactly trying to.
I can't even hear what you're saying.
Oh,
All I hear is echoes.
Okay, sorry.
Like in a big echo chamber here.
I'm saying that the property values, if you go through this property, go through the planning board, get the site plan approved, and do this correctly, it can't hurt the surrounding property values. It's going to help. And so what I'm saying,
What we have right now is.
This is not a debate.
Yeah.
It's not a debate.
What we have right now is we have.
Well, it's just,
I'm speaking in your favor. I'm speaking in your favor.
All right, go.
Let me say what we have right now, so what we have with the building is. We have 2 apartments that are decent condition, that are
Downstairs.
rented, and we have one that's a very, very large apartment, and it's spacious, and that's the one that is not rented. It would be a hardship for me to own this. The tax is $10,000 in this building, and it'd be a hardship for me not to be able to do what I was intended, what the building was used for. So that's what I'm,
But you
that's
have
what I'm
2
at right
units
now.
rented at $1,500 a unit, that's $36,000 a year.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not
just sitting,
bad.
it's just sitting there empty. The third unit is very
But you
large.
got 2 generating $36,000, and you're paying your taxes and your insurance.
Yeah, well, the taxes are over $10,000 and the insurance is $16,000 before I do anything. I mean, that's extremely expensive. The building's 5,000 square feet.
Okay, we're getting off topic.
So
He's stating facts, you can't hear what
yeah,
he's saying.
I don't hear what you're saying. It's like
Okay,
an echo chamber.
we're discussing whether there'd be diminution of value of surrounding properties as a board, and I was making the point that I don't think there would be a diminution of value because if it's done properly, it would help it. So that's
Let's
my
go to the next
input
one.
onto that one. So
Will granting this variance be of benefit to the public interest?
and
3, did you want to comment on that?
I personally don't think there's any benefit to the public interest in that. I think it's neutral. I don't think it's a benefit. I don't think it would.
More
Okay.
housing.
At number 3, will little enforcement of the zoning ordinance result in an unnecessary hardship?
And again, I don't think that would be, it would result in an unnecessary hardship because you purchased the property and knowing what the conditions were, and I don't think you can buy a hardship. You buy a property and it's got 300 feet of road frontage, say, and you decide you want to subdivide it. Well, you know that the zoning regulations at the time are 200 feet per property, so that's not a hardship because when you bought it, that's what the regulations were. So in this case, you bought a property in
When I bought it, I thought it was approved for a 3-family.
it had a variance to allow with a site plan
I'm
approval.
sorry, that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference. It's not in that zone. So there is no hardship.
The bank thinks it's.
Stay on topic here.
Okay, so
The bank thinks it's a 3-family too. It says on the tax map,
Okay.
a 3-family when they got a mortgage.
So I'm saying that I don't think there's a hardship in literal enforcement of the law because I don't think there's any compelling reason. There's nothing unique about the property that would. That's the criteria that used by the state. If there has to be something unique about that property, it would create a hardship.
Okay. Number 4, will substantial justice be done if this variance is granted? And number 5, will the use contemplated by the petitioner as a result of obtaining this ordinance be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance?
And I think the spirit of the ordinance is pretty clear. It's single family and duplex. So
I already said that. I did say that all 5 had to pass in order for you to get the.
The bank bank thinks it's a three-family, and it's on the tax card as a three-family right now. The bank pulled the tax card. I have it financed as a three-family.
Whole nother issue.
Yeah. So that's a big problem too.
This whole thing's a big problem.
Well, I'm straightening out a beautiful piece of property. It's the first one that you see in Kingston. I mean, you know how upset I'm gonna be if this thing gets overturned. You can imagine what the place is gonna end up looking like again. I mean, it's just, I'm losing my interest.
You need to stop talking, because what you're saying, I find very
I just thought
offensive.
this was an easy procedure.
It's not an easy procedure. You made an assumption that it was gonna be an easy procedure.
I
You
thought.
haven't done anything for 2.5 years. Not for what we can see.
No, it hasn't been 2.5. They just got it's just turned 2 years by about a couple weeks ago. I don't know how long it's been, because I didn't know there was a time limit. But I did, in good faith, I did pay the engineer, and I've been bugging him to get it done, and it's finally done.
Okay,
James LaBelle,
okay, the first one, will there be
LaBelle
diminution?
Associates in Hampstead.
You ready to hear this? Okay. Will there be a diminution in value surrounding properties as a result? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 say no. So that passes. Number 1 passes. Number 2, will granting this variance be of benefit to the public interest? There are 3 no's and 2 yeses, so it does not pass. Number 3, will literal enforcement result in unnecessary hardship? It's 3 no's and 2 yeses, that also does not pass. Number 4, will substantial justice be done if this variance is granted? 3 no's, 2 yeses, again, it does not pass. And number 5, will the use contemplated as a result of obtaining this variance be contrary to the spirit of the ordinance? It was 3 yeses and 2 no's, and that doesn't pass. So 4 of the 5 don't pass.
I don't know what happened, but it passed at the last meeting I went to.
We went through a lot with you to get it passed up to 2.5 years ago. We did. So I need a motion on,
I'll move that we deny the application based on the 4 out of the 5 criteria not passing.
is there a second? Second. Discussion? All those in favor of denying the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. So it's unanimous to deny it. You're gonna have to start all over again. You're gonna have to come before us with some plans. You're gonna have to work with it.
I have to do everything. What do I have to do all over again?
You gotta go for a variance with all the nuts and bolts in place. You're gonna get a site plan of the property and where you're gonna put the 3rd unit. Where in that building are you putting the 3rd unit?
The unit right now is a 4-family right now. It has,
Just because it used to be 4, you got a variance for a 3, and you didn't do a thing with it. Now you want us to automatically extend it after 2, yes, you do.
no, I don't want to go back to
It's
a
not
4.
gonna-
I just
it's
want,
not-
I'm looking for an approval, just continue what you already gave me. I didn't know you could change a factor after all this.
When it expires, yes, when the variance expires,
So what
there's
is my
no
next,
guarantee.
what is my next step? I have to hire Tricia again? She came to 5 meetings to get it approved before.
You won't be coming here for a bid, you gotta go to the planning board with a site plan.
Well, wait a second, time out.
The
Time out.
planning board doesn't want me there.
Wait,
Oh, just a procedural thing here.
What?
We've just denied this. So his options are to create a 2-apartment, continue using it as a 2-apartment building.
Right.
Or to reapply for a 3-apartment, but that would be, we've just denied that. He came in to request a 3-apartment. So he can't go to the planning board because he doesn't have a variance. So his next step, if he wanted to go to Superior Court to try to get this decision overturned, his first step actually would be to request a rehearing or appeal of the decision
of the zoning board.
And I think the Superior Court would probably require that, so.
What do I have to do for, when I come back in, I have all the facts already. I mean, we already went through this all. I don't understand what I need to present. I gave you all the facts, you
You
approved
came in
it.
here thinking that just because you got it 2.5 years ago, that it was going to get it tonight. You didn't. So.
I didn't
you
plan
get-
on presenting everything. I already,
I'm sorry, Mr. Khalil, you're making this more difficult than it needs to be. Right? You assume you were gonna get it, otherwise you would have some drawings of what you wanna do, what you plan to do, what the next steps are. You have nothing. You gave us nothing, you have nothing here. Now, you can appeal our decision and say we made an error in judgment and ask for a rehearing, and you got 30 days to do that. You got 30 days to appeal to this board.
during the next hearing, you want me to give you,
I want you to pretend like it's from the scratch. Not that there's 4 units. Now, right now, you have a conforming building with 2 units in there, and you want to make it 3. And how are you going to make it 3? You're going to give us plans and ideas of how you're going to make it 3, and what steps you're going to have to go through to get that. And then we can decide as a board whether we give you the variance to have a 3-apartment building in a 2-apartment zone. But you're going to start from the beginning.
well, that was 4 different meetings with a
Well,
lawyer
it could be
representing
6
it.
different meetings. You didn't do it. You didn't get it done.
I didn't think it was, I just thought it was
Ignorance is not gonna work, because you are an experienced developer.
No, I'm not.
Baloney.
I just closed a car dealership. I was there for 21 years. I accumulated property, that I have a lot of rental property, but I never went from 2 to 3 to 4, and, I mean, I never ran into a situation like this. Before I bought the property, I came here, and you guys said it was approved for a 3-family, so then I continued my purchase and bought it.
You can appeal this decision and give us some facts of why we erred in judgment.
I don't know if I'm knowledgeable enough to
Well,
put the documents together without hiring my attorney again to do the same thing over again.
I think you are.
Is there somebody that
I'm
can
not
help
gonna
me?
walk you through it, no. You can talk to Mr. Stewart. You get along with Mr. Stewart?
Of course I do.
Okay, then he can help you through it. And what you need to do.
Well, thank you, I guess.
Yeah, I know, it is what it is. What is it?
What'd you say? Nothing.
She's gonna help me?
I think she probably could do a better job.
Yeah, I just thought it was cut and dry. I'm
No.
just, I didn't know I had to go through the whole procedure over again.
If you came in here a month before it applied, a couple of weeks before it expired, I mean, you might have been able to get an
Yeah.
extension.
I had no idea. It's been like,
But you've done nothing to start on that 3rd one, but you said you can't, because you.
I can't do anything. I just been fixing the outside of the building up, and some windows on the approved units already, the front door, stuff like that, making it pretty. I just did the whole brand new roof. I got a permit from Mr. Stewart. I got a roof permit, $10,000 job to put a new roof on it.
Okay, we're all set,
I guess.
I guess.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, ladies, a motion to adjourn, please.
Motion to adjourn.
And a second, and then all in favor, and aye.
Aye, yeah.
Thank you, Adam, we're all set.